Check 1, 2. Audio check 1. How's everybody doing? All right. Everybody give yourselves a hand, huh? Good to see y'all this evening. We'll be with you shortly. It's going to be wonderful. Don't take my word, because hang around and see. It's going to be all right. Everything is everything.
I know. I know, I heard it.
Take the flash though.
All right, family, good evening.
Good evening.
How we doing this evening?
Good.
Great. For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Baruch. I'm the CEO and founder of Eli Restaurant, where we, 29 years ago, identified the area where we saw ourselves being most under attack. In 1995, and we saw that area as our food, our diet. We decided we wanted to create a viable food source for our community, and we wanted to create a culture and a mindset for living a longer life and having a better quality of life. Too many of us were becoming okay with taking medication in their 20s that they were going to have to take for the rest of their lives. Too many of us are okay with the whole notion of getting sick and dying and not getting old and dying. It's as a result of our conditioning that we accept it. For those of you in this room, some of y'all can say granny, some of y'all need to say great granny, but she lived into her 90s. You know, now grandmas are making it to 50 and 60. And you know what we're saying at the funeral? She lived a good life. So she lived a couple years after her retirement. Never got a chance to really enjoy life. So we created Everlasting Life to counter the work that was being done to destroy our people. And we continue in that work. We continue to provide that viable food source to our community. We provide a space of transition. We take you from eating the bad for you food, the what I call crackdowns and Murder King and Taco Hell and Wind Disease and Chokers and Bow Strangles and the International House of Pulmonary Heart Disease and Slop Eyes and Sick Filet. We take you from that level of consumption and we take you to a level where you can transition. You have similar names, similar tastes, similar textures, you know, the whole thing. We give you that, and then we take you all the way up to organic juice. You know, so it's a process, and we see ourselves as a hospirant, not a restaurant, not a hospital, but a hospirant. There are many of my clients that I see first that eventually become customers in the restaurant, because they realize that what we have to offer in the pharmacy, Pharmacy, is better than what we're getting elsewhere. And if nothing else, they understand the spirit of what it is that we have to offer is better than what they're getting elsewhere. Because there was a time back in the day when you couldn't just eat at anybody's house because your mama didn't know the spirit of the woman cooking the food.
Come on.
And now we will go out in a minute without any concern or care and buy some food from somebody somewhere where we don't know anything about anything. And we're okay because it tastes good and it was within our budget and it was convenient and we're accustomed to it, and that's it. We have no concern for the spirit in the food. We have no concern for the nutritional value of the food. So we've lost our way. And a lot of it has to do with how we believe. We believe that I can put in front of me a plate of chitterlings, and the children are here, so I'm not going to tell you what my grandmother used to call them, but it sounded real close to chitterlings, right? And we would put a plate of chitterlings on a plate, and we believed that you could pray over it, and it would make it right. That's how much power we decided to give to something that somebody else gave us, that we could actually pray over this poison and make this poison a delicacy. So we've lost our minds, we've lost our way, and now we're losing our lives. And we don't understand the connection between all of that, you know. I'll ask the question. I know you all didn't come to hear me, but I just wanted to kind of get you all prepared, because you're going to dine very well tonight. Trust me. That what is the number one health challenge facing us in the United States of America? Does anyone know? Diabetes. Obesity. Heart disease. High blood pressure. Cancer. Racism. Okay, that's different. Yep. The reality is, I would say no to all of them. I would say the number one health challenge facing us in the United States of America is low self-concept. You have a low concept of yourself, therefore you find it acceptable to go to Crackdonald's and get a crappy meal. Because you have to have a low self-concept in order for that to be acceptable. You understand? I drive on my way home, I'm able to drive by one of the Crackdonald's up the street, and it's amazing. You see Bentleys, you see Infinities and Lexuses and Mercedes and BMWs just lined up in the line to poison themselves in their luxury vehicle. We've lost our way. So that's been our purpose here at E-Life Restaurant, to give you that education and that nutritional infusion that we would need. I'm going to close with this. Most black people are okay with chronic illnesses, and I'll make you understand this, that we're okay, we accept that we're going to have a chronic illness. You all mentioned them all: diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, asthma, the list goes on. We're okay with those because we just think that's a part of life. And then the medical system has gotten so clever that they've now tied it to genes. They've tied it for you, not in reality, but for you, they make the connection that it's genes. So you know what you are? You're an innocent victim of your mother and father's diet. And therefore, you're okay with taking drugs for the rest of your life because you're an innocent victim. You take no responsibility for what you got, and therefore you really don't understand your ability to overcome it. And you're okay because you got good insurance, so you're going to live this thing out taking metformin for the rest of your life. Any brothers in here taking metformin before? Good. Because my next question was, how soon after did you need Viagra? Because that's the whole protocol. They put you on the metformin, which is reducing your libido, and then all of a sudden you can't understand. You're sitting at the edge of the bed with your head in your hand trying to figure out, baby, but we got some good memories. That don't last long. So most of the chronic conditions that we suffer from are nutritional deficiencies and toxicities. We're toxifying our body and we're not nourishing ourselves. So you find yourself, that is what I see. When people come to me as clients, every one of them, toxified and undernourished. And if we could only understand the importance of going back to eating like we used to, when we used to go to grandma's house and pick them turnip greens and eggplant and squash and whatever else out the ground, and that's what she would fix us for dinner. If we only understood the value of that, we would overcome so many other health challenges. Y'all remember Soul Train videos, right? Y'all see them today, the Soul Train. We were all skinny as a rail, right? And that was a snapshot of us. That was how we looked up in Southeast. We look like Soul Train. We don't look like Soul Train anymore. Ain't nobody jumping up in the air, and nobody's gonna catch you like they did on Soul Train. We've lost our way. Today, we're blessed to have a brother who's dedicated his life work, his family work, to the upliftment, the empowerment of our people. Dissecting what is going on out here, because some of us can't see it. So he comes to us and he breaks this down so that we can see it and understand it better, so we know what we're dealing with, because some of us will be right in the face of the enemy and we think we're safe, which is one of the worst conditions I've found, even worse than the poor diet, is our trust. I wanted to say something else. Our trust in our enemy.
How do you do that?
Where do you do that? Who does that?
Who does that?
That you trust your enemy with your food, hello,
Education,
your education, come on.
concept of good and bad, right and wrong.
The definition to define is in the hands of your enemy.
I'm gonna teach.
And we're okay with that. And we live life embracing what he says is good and right,
That's right.
and suppressing what is bad and wrong. We live life, some of us are old enough to remember the days when everybody had a mom and dad in the house. Everybody. Well, my block did. And then we saw it go away, and it happened so fast, it happened so subtly, we didn't know where the storm was coming from. And because we were in pursuit of pleasure, we took on this mindset of, I need to do something for myself.
Individualism. Come on, talk about it.
I need to finally look out for me, because I'm not going to be like my mama in that house for 50 years with a man that she don't love and going through all of that. Not saying that she should, but I think we've disconnected ourselves from a lot. Today we're going to get the instruction. We're going to get the warrior's handbook. We're going to get the wisdom that we need in order to identify our enemy, how to wage war against our enemy, and how to win. Okay? This is critical. This room should be busting.
Yeah.
It should be to the brim. Baba's done a great work.
Yes.
A brother who's built his own educational institution for grades 4 through 12, taught at the collegiate level, working with our children, because like somebody said, how can we send our children to their institutions of education with the expectation that our children are going to be in alignment with our vision and our culture, right?
Insanity.
Yeah, definitely. So, without further ado, I want to say one thing before I bring them on. Any of y'all that want to volunteer to be a part of the support team that makes all of this happen, y'all saw it all happen, right? Y'all want to be a part of the support team, you ain't got to wait or hesitate. Please. We call this the communiversity. And inside the communiversity, everybody can help. We all can help to make these things happen. We want to build this to the point where we're inside of a banquet hall in some major, or we build our own major hotel, right? And put it inside of our banquet hall. But until then, we have to work and treat what we have now like it is. So, I want us to, before we bring our brother up, think about some things that our brother has done. And recognize how important it is that we recognize the greatness in him, which only recognizes the greatness in ourselves, right? Because you're a mirror, right? And he's a mirror for us, and we get a chance to see ourselves. So our brother's done this great work. He's going to stand before us for the next hour, 2 hours, or what have you, and teach us. If that was the only reason why you would stand up when I bring him up, that should be enough. That he'll be standing before us for 2 hours. He's given his life and his work over to us. He makes it available to us in books, in videos, and whatever. And for those of you who like to videotape, you're welcome. Okay? And I would ask that you turn off your cell phones. This is normally when mine rings. But turn off your cell phones so that it does not disrupt the recording or it doesn't disrupt the presentation. We have vendors in the back after we're done. Please make sure you do business with the vendors because that's one of the ways that we make this happen. I will be going around in the midst of you and making sure that everybody's here. If you have not paid, please listen, everybody. If you have not paid to be here, go to the register and pay now so that when I get to you, you don't have to get up and do that. So, don't get up now, brother. Wait.
Oh, you say get up.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I don't want you to. We'll figure it out. But so I'm bringing up a brother that I want you all to stand up and recognize for his great work that he has done and will do. There are not many of them left. We just had Dr. Leonard Jeffries and his wife here. They're in their 90s. I didn't ask Baba how old he is because he looks like he's in his 40s, but he might be a little older than that. Might be. And I know his wife, and he had been doing some work for a long time. I've been hearing his name for a long time. But now, without further ado, I'd like to have you all stand up and bring on my brother, my teacher, my friend, a brother in the struggle and a warrior for sure, Baba Walimu Baruki. Stand here and smile. I know almost everybody here. I'm pretty speechless right now. There are folks I haven't seen in a while. There are folks I have just seen, and it's good to see them again. This is beautiful. This is literally beautiful. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate Dr. Baruch and his work. I appreciate him inviting me again. Being humble comes in different shapes and sizes. He's got a special kind of humility, which is in service to the community. And we should honor that. We should assist him in this process. He does good work for us. He does excellent work for us. It's really an honor to be here. This is, in a way, I mean, I know that it's maybe not appropriate for quote-unquote warrior scholars to say, this is fun, or I'm having fun, but that's exactly how I feel right now. Most of the folks here know what I'm talking about before I'm talking about it. They've been part of NEI in my life virtually forever. But we're going to take this evening, I put together, I think, somewhere around 90 slides. We're going to talk about the warrior's character. There's a lot of confusion there. And that's one of the reasons why our community is in such disarray right now, why we're having so many problems right now, while we're in so much pain right now. It's just not difficult. And I often forget to deal with the fact that
the level of bravery that individual and collective warriors demonstrate, exercise, without even recognizing it amongst themselves. Because humility, of course, is part of being a warrior. But you know, when you choose to fight for African people, when you choose us as your people, when you recognize yourself as your ancestors, when you understand just how important what you do is, you have to stop, you know, and recognize just how powerful you are. You have decided, as an individual, you have decided to fight a war against a nation. You by yourself. It wouldn't make a difference if the rest of the warriors were there or not. You'd still be doing this work. You have to understand the level of bravery that comes just with fighting 3 or 4 or 5 guys coming at you. You have chosen to take on an entire nation. And not only have you chosen to take on an entire nation, you've chosen to take on those minions among our people who have sided with that nation. And every other group of people, if we want to call them people, every other group of people who uses us to get what we have. That's a level of courage that most people don't understand and can't see in themselves. So to be in your presence to me is a major honor. I know I do my work. I know Enia does her work. But I also know that you do your work, because there's no way on this planet we could do a teeny tiny piece of this on our own. So we're very proud. She's in the sister circle right now, but I think I can speak for her saying that we're proud of you all. And we will continue to do this till we're gone. My brother said he didn't know how old I was. I recently turned 68. And I don't feel it. When I look in the mirror, I see it. But otherwise, I try to avoid that mirror. This lecture, while we're waiting on the PowerPoint, this lecture is based on the book I wrote, Ewell. I wrote a Sappho a number of years earlier than Ewell because, well, if you're responsible to your people, then you write what they need. Whatever questions they have, you try to answer them to the best of your ability. You try to speak on things that they answer to because you don't know what they need more than they do. So I wrote a Sappho because I'm looking around the Atlanta metro area and I'm wondering what happened to the definition of manhood. Mm-hmm. So a Sappho is supposed to be a discussion of manhood from an African-centered perspective. What I realized a number of years later was that I skipped something. Because I'm looking around and I'm seeing guys trying to imitate, and women, it's not just the guys.
Right.
Okay. I'm a man, so I primarily talk to the men, but we forget, we have a record of warrior women. A strong record of warrior women. That goes back in any direction you want to take us. We have a strong record of warrior women. My aunts carried 22s in there. We say Brazilians, they carried 22s in there because they weren't playing. And I had one aunt, she could really wield a frying pan. She didn't play. She didn't play. I remember, she was just an aunt. We called her Great Aunt Hattie. And my brother, who's 3 years older than me, we were children at the time, and Aunt Hattie had a reputation for whipping your behind. And my brother said, she ain't whipping nobody's behind. So she whipped his behind just on general principle. That's where we come from. That's where we come from. But like I said, most of what I'm writing is for brothers, because for me, we need the most work because I'm a brother. But I wrote a Sappho about manhood, and I said, I was looking around, I'm wondering what's wrong, because these guys are walking around looking more like men, you know, performing more security functions in the community, et cetera, but something is missing and it clicked. The character's not right. That's more important than the war. You have a character right, you build what you are. And I'm looking at the children, looking at the men, and this is the model. Not only that they're going to follow, but they're going to take it to the next level, good or bad. So I wrote Iwa because I said either we, and really I can step back for a second. I was sitting in the house one night and 4 or 5 of the youngsters, 14, 15, came by the house and they asked to speak to me. So we went in another room and they began to complain about the level of respect that they weren't receiving from some of the older men in the community. So they were being disrespected, they weren't being listened to. I said, okay, I'll go find out what's going on and we'll try to figure this out. And I went and talked to the older guys, some of the older guys older than me, and they were making the same complaints about the young folk. They don't listen to us, you know, they disrespect us. And it registered to me about that time, okay, our ancestors were clear on these things. They wrote books on this. They had discussions on this. They carved in stone about what's supposed to be the character of African people. I said, so either we never read it, we never came across it, or we read it and we forgot what it was supposed to be about. So that led to the writing of Iwa. And everything that's followed from that is on that same line. Who we are as Africans. It's useless to call yourself an African if that's not what you're being. Unless you know, that's sort of what's acceptable to Europeans. So we'll allow that to happen now. We'll allow us to call ourselves that now. But if we're calling ourselves African, that means we're not stopping at our enslavement. We're not stopping at the shores of the continent. We're not stopping at we're not even stopping at the civilizations that were created after Kemet. You know, if you want the original thing, you go back to the beginning. You go back to the start. You go back to when it's untainted, when it's untouched. That's what you practice. That's what you seek to be. And as Asa Hilliard would say all the time, Mama Rumba says all the time now, that means that you be African. Not that you pretend, not that you can say the word, not that you got Chancellor Williams stuck up under your arm, not that you got a picture of John Henry Clark on your wall. No, that you be these people. And I got that from, way back when I was a child, when I was in the church. And my mother would always talk about Christ's life. You're supposed to be imitating that to the best of your ability. So if we're talking about being African warriors, exactly what does that entail? Exactly what does it mean to be a warrior? And we are people of evidence. This is possibly one of the most important points here. We are people of evidence. We have become part of a culture where if you say something is real, it somehow automatically becomes real. I identify as.
Come on, Bobby. You gotta talk about it. Talk about it, Bobby.
And I'm seeing folks now, when I see locks, I'm questioning first and foremost, first and before, I just automatically assume something revolutionary there.
No.
But now I have to question it because I understand the nature of European culture where everything is a pretense. It's about you being able to convince people that you're something usually that you are not. So that rhetorical ethic that Marimba Ani talked about, where you go into a space, or where they went into our spaces and they figured out what we were about and they imitated that, and we came to believe that they were really about being human, and our guard went down, and then they did what they were going to do anyway. So we have all this pretense in our community. We have people coming into relationships in pretense, pretending that there's somebody that they're not, fooling this other person. You understand the level of deceit? What that says about you as a person, where you intentionally deceive this other person to get something from them. You are lying to them. That's like swearing to the Creator that you're going to do something and then acting like the Creator's not watching. Somehow you can get away with it. This is one of those that I am. Oh, and there's a workbook for Iwa. For folks who have Iwa or don't have Iwa, there's a workbook I've discovered. A lot of mothers who are using Iwa in homeschooling their sons in our community. So I wrote the workbook and they said it's very effective in terms of what they're trying to do. So just to let you know, We can start out with the statement that everything is political, something that a lot of folks don't understand. They want it proven to them that everything is political. Everything is political. And I began to really think in these terms in a conversation I had with Kamal R. Cambone, who is now one of our ancestors. I'm sitting in his house, a house that he and his wife built. What we have done, like I said, to fight a nation. This man and his wife left New York. They moved to South Carolina. They lived in a garage for years while they physically constructed a house. How many of us are willing to do something like that? That's warriorhood. I'm not using your stuff. I'm not paying to have events in your space. I'll build my own space. I'm not going to put my stuff in your museum or sell my books in your, I'm going to sell them in my store. I'm going to make me a store. But I'm sitting in the house having a conversation with him, and he said, you know, everything I do, I think about its impact on African people. And I looked at him, I said, everything? He said, yeah, everything. How much toothpaste I put on my toothbrush, how far I drive, you know, what I spend my money on here, how I do this. He said, everything that I do. And that really helped me to understand the idea that everything is political. Everything that you do benefits somebody. The question is, who is it benefiting? Is it benefiting us? Or is it benefiting our enemies? Is it benefiting us, or is it benefiting those people who are using us as doormats to get into the city of privilege? So everything is political. We need to think about what we're saying, how it impacts on our children, on the future generations. Because if you're making our story, you're sitting here now breathing, you're making our story. You're impacting on the future, whether you understand it or not. There was it was either Twilight Zone or Outer Limits, one of the old ones, where these people had found a way to get into the past. And they created this path that you could walk on, but it didn't touch anything. It was off the ground. And one of the rules of going into this place was that you can't touch anything in this environment because you may mess up the future. You may do something to the future. So these people went on this walk, and one of them slipped and fell and stepped on a butterfly. And when they came back out of that space, that time tunnel, whatever it was, Hitler had won. Everything that you do now impacts the future. Everything that you do now impacts the future. What you eat right now is going to impact you when you turn 80, 90 years of age. And not that Hitler's any different than anybody else who's running any particular country. But everything that you do impacts. Everything is political. Therefore, the character of African warriorhood can only be understood in the context of Urugu's reality and anti-African insanity. We live in a world that hates Africa, that hates Africans, that does everything in its power to undermine us, to destroy us, to keep us from becoming powerful. It's like everywhere you go, everything is working against you. You have to turn into somebody else, because one example, they have taken all of the principles of Ma'at and they have flipped them upside down. And we're now glorifying what they flipped upside down as normal, because we're part of this, and we don't want to be odd, and we don't want to be seen as, really different. We don't want to have to stand out in that particular way. But they've taken our whole world. There's nothing about this space, about the heart of this space. It may look similar, but African people, they look inside. They want to know how you feel, where your heart is, what your intent is. With the letter of the law versus, the rule of law. We want to know why you committed the crime. We don't want to know that you committed the crime per se. We're going to lock you up for committing the crime, but we want to know why, because that is going to determine what the sentence is. So we are people who are operating in a reality that is not ours. And I like to put this one up here, always after it. I don't know what young man did this, but I know it was a young man who wrote this, and I love the way he put it. Put everything is political. Put everything in the context of the fact that we are at war. When you understand that, a whole bunch of stuff clears up. Whole bunch of stuff clears up. You see your neighbors different. You see your family different. You begin to understand what Henry Clark said when he said, we're not ready for revolution because we're not ready to kill family. That becomes, really, really clear. Yeah. I have a few. So we want to know, what is character? We have to start out, with basic definitions. What is character? And I put as its basic definition, it is the quality of your integrity, your heart, the similarity between what you think and say and do, how aligned they are. It is the quality of your integrity as measured relative to that of our warrior ancestors. That's our measuring rod.
Break it down, Bob.
That's our measuring rod. Not even the warriors today. Most of us don't compare. Most of us wouldn't bleed as well. Most of us would cry quick, dealing with things that they handled like it was nothing. What they would do for their children that we won't do for our children. So we have to measure who we are, our character, based upon the quality of their character. We have to measure our level of progress in this and any other reality based upon the progress of Africans before the invasion of the continent. Before that, not after, because then we get really confused. And I have several lists here, which I think are very important in terms of what are priorities for African people, because we don't know. We don't know. This brother Moshe, he wrote a book, The Heartbeat of Indigenous Africa. In this book, he talked about how there wasn't a distinction between Africans and spirit and the Creator. In fact, when you look at some of the Proverbs going back, the name for the Creator was Dad, Granddad, Great-Granddad, because that's the beginning of our lineage. What does that say to you in terms of what's supposed to be the quality of your character if the Creator is your older? That's a different way of looking at the Creator than something that's way out there, It's not you. You're born in sin. You're trying to figure out a way to be good. But he talked about how Africans saw rhythm as the heartbeat of the universe, as the heartbeat of the Creator. And when I'm trying to explain this to little ones, I ask them, how'd you like some music without any bass in it, without a beat, Led Zeppelin type stuff? How would you like, have to listen to that? Of course, their faces turn. African people, you can't give us something unless it has a beat in it, unless there's some rhythm. And not only if there's a beat, but if you can feel that. Okay, we critique young folks because the speakers are tearing the windows out of their cars. They feeling that beat. They're feeling that beat. That's a feeding off of that. They're looking for that beat. There's something about that. There's something about that they connect with. Okay? And even though they don't listen to the lyrics the way they need to, they're connecting to that beat. So give me some jazz, give me some whatever without a beat, I'm giving it back. Because this is us, and it's not something unnatural. Even the squarest of us, okay, we still want that beat. We still want that beat. But this guy Moshe, he talked about that, and he talked about these characteristics of people who are of good character. He was talking about people who are of good character. They have reverence, self-control, silence, and thoughtfulness. Silence. There are more proverbs about silence than any other quality, any other virtue. And we've been brought into a world that your ancestors said about the Greeks, a language of noise and confusion. Those are their words. They said a language of noise and confusion. They called the Greeks children. They said this is a language of noise and confusion. And now we are hook, line, sinker, fishing pole, boat, ship, everything. Trying to make as much noise as we can. And when you make noise, most part you can't think. We did some things at Octobin where we tried to start the day out with meditation, and we would, have quiet time. And the children were going crazy because they could not sit still. They couldn't deal without the noise even for a few minutes. And it's not the children didn't raise themselves. They have been allowed to do this to the degree that they think that this is normal, that this is natural for us. And according to the ancestors, it's not. Courage, wow. Diligence at work, communality, being a community. These are things that we're supposed to have as our first and foremost priorities. When we wake up every morning, we're supposed to figure out how to do better in all of these areas. Reverence, respect for elders, respect for ancestors, respect for the divinity. If you have that kind of respect, then that turns you into a particular type of person. That calms your spirit down. That brings harmony into your life, into the community. When you have reverence, because if you have reverence for them, then you have reverence for you. We say a compliment to you is also a compliment to me, because we're one. Self-control, as the very first of the requirements of the neophytes in the Kemetic mystery system. Self-control. Because if you can control yourself, everything else is a done deal. Everything else is a piece of cake. And we don't have self-control, and we've been talking about it. It's getting worse. And worse and worse. And all of us are scientists. All of us, at minimum, are social scientists. So we need to be able to understand science is an understanding of history so you can predict what's coming. They want us to believe that you just want to talk about science because it's an exercise in intellect. No, it's supposed to be used in a particular way. Chancellor Williams said in the first chapter of Destruction of Black Civilization, we're supposed to take this understanding of history so that we can figure out what to do. Not so we can have arguments and debates and discuss it for the next 40,000 years. We're supposed to be studying this so we know what to do, so we can go where we need to go, instead of following people who don't know where they're going. As long as they're ahead, they don't care. But they have no idea where they're going. Self-control is if we got self-control, overnight, all of our interpersonal, intimate relationships issues would be resolved. Virtually overnight, they would be resolved. If we got self-control, we wouldn't have to worry about people snatching our daughters and our wives and our sisters and disappearing. Because we would know that the first and foremost priority is to make sure the community is safe. And that would be the priority, okay? So you indicate, you look at the problems that we have, and you as an individual, you pick out that one which is the worst, and you work on that. And you solve that problem. Or you begin the process of solving that problem. There's too many problems that we have to try to go and grab them all. You'll fail. Many years ago, folks who've known me for a while, they know drugs, alcohol, dropping out of school, all the rest of stupidity. I didn't try to attack all of those. I looked at what was the worst one. I let the other ones go, and I attacked that one. The rest of them felt like dominoes. We become either so overwhelmed that we can't think about, we can't solve this problem, let me just live. Or we try to pretend that this is normal and natural for humans. When I was writing the Sex Imperative, I came across a book written by two white male scholars. And they made the argument that rape should be considered normal and natural. We shouldn't be upset at rapists, because it's existed since the beginning of time. Of course, I would say beginning of whose time, but from the beginning of time. And this is the logic that we're following. As long as their science says it, we're good. As long as their science says it, we're good. And that can't be right, because I can't imagine our ancestors condoning rape. As highly honored as women were, I was talking the other day, you had groups in Africa where if you intentionally scared a pregnant woman, that was like at the level of a felony. And we're walking around here now. I mean, I'm almost a decade now. Grandmothers getting raped by grandchildren. How can we have been reduced to that unless we are no longer who we are? Because that's not us. Silence and thoughtfulness again. You have moments where you can figure out who you are. Where you can, recognize your power. Recognize what you're capable of. I think a lot of what we don't do is because we don't think we're able. We don't think we're strong enough. We don't think we're smart enough. We think the odds are too great. My father told me all the time, a man can stand alone. That was like his fundamental definition of manhood. It meant that it didn't make a difference if there were 1,000 out there. You did what you needed to do because it was right. Where do we lose that? We're compromising on what's right so that we can live? That's a slave mentality. Where you get that mentality where you can have my wife, you can have my children, you can have just let me live. That's a slave mentality. And so many of us have adopted that in such sophisticated ways. We look good at it. But this is not our ancestors. So if we're not going to be African, then we shouldn't be calling ourselves Africans.
Right.
If we're not going to be warriors, we shouldn't be calling ourselves warriors. That's a lie. Diligence at work. I want to think about part of that discussion with all of the brothers who I've talked to who talk a good game about helping their sons and daughters and spend 12, 15 hours a week in front of the TV watching sports. And the children are sitting there, where you at, Dad? Where you at, Unc? We're wasting our time while we're recognizing our children are being murdered. Or our children's minds are being destroyed. And we're not passing on what needs to be passed on. I know a brother in Atlanta, he is probably the most thorough conspiracy theorist I've ever encountered. And he was a student, I knew him for years. But his sons, he has 3 sons, they're in their teens now. They don't know anything he knows. He hasn't explained to them anything. Good, bad, and indifferent, I don't care. He hasn't sat down with them and explained to them what a conspiracy theory is, how he came to his conclusions. He's not passing it on. Among the yearbook, and I say ethnicity for a reason, we got to stop this culture stuff. That's divisive. And they have us saying that to keep us divided. African people have a culture. One. You have subcultures. You have ethnicities, ethnic groups within there. Just like I don't say this nation. Yoruba are not a nation. They are African ethnicity. They're an African ethnic group. And when we start saying these things, different African cultures, no, we're the same. Just because I wear socks and you don't, that makes us different cultures? Just because I eat yams and you eat peanuts, that makes us a different culture? Just because you were invaded by and colonized by the Portuguese and I was invaded and colonized by the French, that makes us a different culture? At the heart, you find greater similarities among African ethnic groups than you do between Africans and Europeans. Well, F. Asante talked about that. He and his wife talked about that. There are differences between us, yes. But the differences that exist between us are not as great as the differences between us and them in totality. They don't want to do that to themselves because they don't want you to see that they're one. It's something to think about. If Kenya, how we want to pronounce it, decided they wanted to invade Britain, the rest of the European nations and countries just sit around and watch, they're going to join, they're going to tear Kenya up.
Okay.
All of them are. And if they're not actually engaged in the military combat, they're going to be supplying some of the materials. They are one. When we understand that, anyway, Europe, a description of persons of good character, and they tend to have the best contemporary descriptions. It talks about how we're supposed to act toward other people as an indicator of your character. Just like when we say civilization, we use so many words that we don't think about their meaning. We're just used to, we don't think about what does sidewalk mean. That means a walk on the side. Underpass, that means a path under. We don't think about what words mean. We just use them because we're familiar with the definition, or we assume that we have the correct definition for them. When we say civilization, civilization has a root word of civil. Civil is a definition of how we treat other people. It's not a measurement of how tall your skyscrapers are, how many submarines you have, how much money you have. Civilization is supposed to be a measurement of how you treat each other. So you cannot have a place that has homeless children calling itself a civilization. It's not a civilization. It may be a society. It may be a country. But it's not a civilization. But because we have allowed other people to confuse our definitions, we look at it as one. Just like we have allowed them to confuse the definition of human or being human. Your ancestors understood you weren't born human. That's something that you had to earn. You are people of evidence that you had to earn. But why did they adjust the definition? So now every European who acts like a European is defined as a human as well. So serial killers are human. Africans would not consider them to be human. They would be removed from the circle. So these are things that you do or don't do if you have good character. Chastity, practice chastity toward everyone except the compliment. That means you don't have baby mamas. If you're married, you know that doesn't exist. Because that's not within your character. You know you're African and you have self-control and you don't do these things. I remember doing a lecture in Brooklyn and we were talking about complementarity, and it was Q&A time, and this sister asked me, she said, have you ever cheated? And I said, no, and I can provide evidence. I've been in my wife's space for the last 30-some years, every day, all day long, grad school, everywhere. I've been in her space. And there are some other factors as well, but, and I said, no, I haven't. And the look on her face told me that she believed it when she said, you're lying. And she wasn't trying to hurt my feelings, but she believed no man can be faithful. And pretty soon it's going to be nobody can be faithful. Because the women are following suit real quick. And they've been following suit to a degree, but it's just been hidden. And the law looks at the women a little bit differently than it does the men. Chastity, practicing chastity in this world, you're not supposed to control yourself. Nothing but the dog in me. No, you're not supposed to control yourself. It's just natural. You got to go sow your oats or wheat, whatever it is that you're sowing. That's the that's just the way of the world. That's what you do. That's natural. You're not supposed to have control in that area. You're human. Listen, I'm only human. You're human. No, that's their definition of what it means to be human. And their definition of what it means to be human is that you are born in sin and you cannot control yourself. That's why you go to church on Sunday, so you can get some control, at least for Monday. Practice chastity. Are hospitable toward others, especially deserving strangers. The person who is honored, how many times have I said this? The person who is most honored in every African community I've ever studied was the person who gave the most, had the least, with the least expectation of return. And I didn't say it in the correct order, but all three of those apply. That was the person who had the greatest honor in the community. I talk about Mrs. Gates, who lived around the corner from us when I was a child. This woman made some biscuits. She made Guinness Book of World Records get biscuits. And every child would visit her house once or twice a day. to get something. And all of the adults in the community knew that's what Miss Gates was doing. And we came to find out as we got older, parents were giving her money on the side, buy her whatever she needed to make these biscuits. But Miss Gates was the most honored person in our community. Everybody knew Miss Gates. Try to break into Miss Gates' house and see what happens to you. Everybody knew Mrs. Gates. She didn't have the most money. She was like pretty much dirt broke. She was loved and honored above and beyond anybody. Now, what do we love and honor people based on? Material, what they look like, what car they drive, what neighborhood they live in. I don't care if you beat your wife. I don't care if you put your children up in the closet all day long. I don't care if you cheat on your exams. I don't care if you steal my house through your company. You got that car. All these things I'm talking about, and I hope that I'm talking about, I'm not trying to change the world. This, technically it's not mine, even though it is mine. I'm not trying to change the world. I'm trying to change our centers. Those centers are changed where they can serve as examples to other people who recognize just how flawed we are as a menticidal people. You start small. We're always trying to change everything, do the big thing. So everything is done so big. The best organizations are those who start small. The schools that last, the independent schools that last the longest in our community are those that start in the basement where mom and dad got together and said, we don't want our children in school. You're the best teacher. You teach them. We'll go to work and give you part of our pay. Those are the ones that are most effective. Those are the ones that last the longest. We got to go back to that. Little things. You. Working on you. Okay, you can't close your eyes, like my father told me. You can't close your eyes. African women are beautiful. You can't close your eyes. I mean, that's how men are trained in a normal society where men's job is to protect. They play sports like football because that increases your ability to see things peripherally, to measure distances in terms of being able to catch and tackle somebody quickly. This is how you are trained. So men are trained for movement. So you can expect when she's pulling her skirt down, his eyes are going to go there because his eyes are trained for movement. Amen. Okay? That's automatic. The question isn't where your eyes go. The question is, where does your mind go? That's the difference. And we have to train ourselves so that we self-control our minds. That's small, but that's enormous. Imagine if the boys in the center community saw the men seeing the sisters and complimenting the sisters, and the sisters didn't take the compliments as somebody trying to talk to you because that's what you're used to and that's what goes on in this reality. But it's respect. Imagine what the next generation of men would look like in terms of what they do with their minds. It took us a long time to get into this core that we're in. It's going to take a long time for us to get out of it. We have to be strong enough to do this work. These are the children. It's not about us. We are 7 generations people. That means everything that you do doesn't think everything is political. Everything you do is supposed to be based on its impact 7 generations down the road. How do you want your families to be 7 generations down the road? Well, model that. The level of respect, what kind of respect do our daughters want to have 7 generations from now? Act selflessly toward others. That doesn't mean, and everything has to be taken in context. So you can't be just openly selfless in a society that sees you as prey. But you should be able to act selfless toward other Africans who understand that they're African and they're trying to be African. I tell the children all the time, in this space, in this house that we're in, this is African space. This is safe, sacred space. You can be African. You can trust yourself. You can put your guard down. Understand when you go outside the door, you got to maybe pull your pants down and sag so nobody will see you as a target. Or act a particular way or say things in a particular way. I understand that, but in this space, and these are the spaces we need to be developing, in this space right here. The adults should be disciplined, the children should be disciplined. There should be nothing but love and respect. I remember going to the Million Man March. And I was going because I was a faculty and they needed a faculty to go, and I would get to see my brother. We're at the Million Man March and we're packed tight. I mean, like, if he moves, I move. Tight. Like how we were packed inside of the rooms in the dungeons on the continent before we were shipped here. And more men died in those dungeons from suffocation because there wasn't enough air for all of them. And I remember stepping on this guy, and this was the time where people were getting shot, or people stepping on shoes and jackets, and you saw the shoes thrown over the telephone lines. And I stepped on this guy's shoe, and my mind said, uh-oh. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. He said, no problem. Kept on walking. I'm like, I'm stunned for like the next 20 minutes. Because he actually did not care. And I stepped on his foot. I didn't just, tap, rub. No, I know he felt that. That's what should be in here. And the whole atmosphere around that should be in here. Whenever we are around people who we see who are in here, who we know are trying to be African, that should be how we address and deal with each other. That should be the sense that we feel toward each other. I'm not talking about Negroes, lost souls, folks who do not understand and do not want to understand. I'm talking about those who do. We need to practice that amongst ourselves. Are driven to express kindness toward others, especially those in need. Keep coming back to especially deserving strangers, especially those in need. Why? Because if you have, you're supposed to help. That's our tradition. I haven't read about hungry people in our tradition when the societies were stable. I haven't read about prostitution, and I wasn't the first person talked about, because family. Somebody's in need, that's the first thing you do. I was taught as a child, you go where you're needed. That's your responsibility. You go where you're needed. And now we look at the needy as people to exploit. Not only do you need to be made poor, but you need to feel poor. I need to feel that I'm better than you because you have nothing. And I know you're a thief and you're a liar, so I can't share anything with you. Children see this. And they interpret it as they should. The sad part of it is they become better at what we do than we do. Skew wickedness, meanness, cruelty, retaliation, how we treat each other, sometimes how I feel at night. And it's usually at night for me because I've used up my energy. And bad stuff can creep in then. It reminds me of Malcolm saying, sometimes I just go out at night and I walk and I think about how horrible this condition is that my people are in. So I cry. Because this is sad. How you gonna have homeless people in a civilization? How you gonna have people who are eating out of trash cans in the civilization? How you gonna have people who look like you in that condition? I saw this brother leave the post office, where there's this homeless white guy, drive all the way to Church's Chicken, get him a meal, and I knew he went to Church's Chicken because that's what it said on the box, and brought this meal back to this guy to eat. And there was a black guy, same post office, no exaggeration, and he looked at him like he was dirt, and went back to his car and drove off. When they are our validators, when our job is to make them feel loved, when we feel that the solution to our problem, which was discussed earlier, the solution to our problem is to make them start treating us like we're human, they become the center of our everything. Everything we do, everywhere we go. And I'm very sure I'm not talking strange to anybody to say, when a European walks in the room, how the atmosphere just changes. Even an important black person, it doesn't change to that degree. Speak truthfully and follow the path of righteousness. I want to say it, but I know so many who are not. We've become a people of liars, of manipulators, of users, imitating masters at that. If you get into anthropology, you're going to come across what are called cargo cults. And cargo cults usually used to describe indigenous people on islands all around the planet who had been colonized and brutalized and all the rest of that. And they, keeping Europeans at their center after so many generations of this, they believed that Europeans' power came from the things that they had. So they had these cults that sat and prayed and worshiped, hoping for these ships to come out the sky, bringing them the things that Europeans had. They were called cargo cults. We so much want to be them because we see power as their essence. The ability to do whatever it is that you want to do, whenever it is that you want to do it, to whoever it is you want to do it to. We see that is inherent in them and everything that they do. So we believe that if we can just be them, we can have that power. Like a child who wants to be an adult because he recognizes the power in the adult to make decisions for them. We want to be them. And we believe that if we imitate them enough and befriend them enough and show them enough love and sleep with their daughters and give them our money, that somehow magically we will become equal. We will become respected by them. We will become loved by our enemies. What idiots want to be loved by somebody who's shooting them? I said a long time ago, I said, well, if he's going to shoot me, I'm not going to sit there and smile at him. If you beat me down, I'm not going to sit there and ask you, could you just hit me with your left hand? It doesn't hurt as much as your right. I mean, these people are proven enemies. Proven. We talk about history, but we don't read what they have done. The average lifespan of an African arriving in Haiti was 7 years. From the time that you arrived till you died. The average time of 7 years. What kind of mind, collective mind, does that? Leopold, 10 million plus. One country. One country. And one of the most painful pictures is looking at this father sitting on the edge of a porch with his head down looking at his daughter's hands. And we want these people's love. More than anything else. More than anything else. George Schuyler, he's a Negro, but George Schuyler wrote a book called Black No More. And in this book, he also wrote a book called Black Empire, which I highly suggest that you read. And there's nothing to do, don't take him as the book. Okay, he's telling a story, and that story does not reflect his behavior over his life. But in Black No More, this person came up, we gesticulate a lot too. I'm good. I'm on the microphone is good. He concocted this, I'll say serum, even whatever it was called, that would turn you white, would turn black people white. Of course, we know he was probably a multi-zillionaire, but would turn you white if you were black. And you have to stop sometimes and ask yourself, I said, would we really? Yes. Yes. The vast majority of us would, yes. In racial reparations, Clarence, forgot his last name for a second, wrote a book called Race and Reparations. And in there, he talked about the number of African people who are passing today. We look at this like this is something that occurred during the time of our enslavement, maybe Jim Crow, what have you. No, he's talking about the number that are passing today in there as well. Clarence Mumford, Canadian brother, scholar. Speak truthfully and follow the path of righteousness. Do not steal. How can you not steal in this world? If you want to succeed, the greatest leaders, the best people, the most powerful people in our community. We can go through the entire political structure in Atlanta. If you're not stealing, then you're losing. Because everybody else is stealing. Everything. And we have so weakened the definition of stealing so that, you know, taking pens from the office, that's not stealing. You're just permanently borrowing it. You know? Stealing is stealing. How can you have, we're supposed to be a communal people, and we have been a communal people. How can you have a communal people when I can't trust you? Because communality is based upon making sure that everybody has what they need. That doesn't mean that some can accumulate more, but that means that everybody has what they need. You share. How can I share with someone who I cannot trust? If I know that you lie to me, this brings up a whole other point, which helps me to explain to the children when they don't understand why I refuse to forgive Europeans for what they have done. And I will say, if I have known you for 40 years, 30 years, 40 years, and I am a liar, and you know that I'm a liar, but we're best friends. So whenever I tell you something, you check whatever I said to make sure that it's true before you believe me, because you know I'm a liar. I'm your friend, but you know I'm a chronic liar. And then I come to you one day and I say, man, I swear on a stack of Bibles, my mom's grave has all the money in it. I swear, I'm telling you, will you believe me? And they say, no. And I said, why we believe in Europeans? They have done nothing but consistently lie to us for the duration of our relationship. And we're trying to find ways to believe. They're coming up with theories about, and I'm not going to stay on this for a second, homosexuality as having origins in certain places. And we forget so quickly that they scientifically proved that we were innately, genetically, their intellectual inferiors during our enslavement and afterwards. They proved this scientifically. In the journals, the books, they proved our intellectual inferiority. But now their science is not political anymore. Not hypocritical. It's like reading a list of people who I know. I don't want to say family because this might get recorded and they might hear it. But people who, you know, I know. Hypocrites. And the children, keep coming back, the children see it. Children, it's like we call our children genius, we play them stupid. That's hypocritical in terms of how we acted out. Unhesitantly protect the innocent and those physically weaker than attackers. How we look at the world. I look at sports now and I am dismayed at how players act toward each other when they beat somebody. To me, it's really shameful. In our tradition, if you picked a fight with someone who everybody knew you could be, you were the punk. You were the punk. Honor and respect our elders. We don't need to talk about that. Here there are a few. I think these lists are important. Pull one thing. Again, pull one thing that you know deep down in your heart and soul you need to correct, that you need to work on. You don't tell anybody anything. Pull one thing out of all of these lists, one single thing, and work on that one single solitary thing for us. And I guarantee you it'll impact something else on these lists that you need to work on. So this list came out of Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, even though it's also sad to say in terms of plagiarism, this came straight out of the Red Book. This is not his, he did not originate this. I didn't take anything away from his brilliance, his political prowess. But this is not his original writing. It came directly from the Red Book. how we do as warriors, because we have a European definition of warriorhood, which means that you dominate, you rule, you hurt, you control, you shoot, you make people do what you want them to do, you come in and you treat them in whatever way you want to. That's the definition of European warriorhood. No rule over you. You rule everything. You have a gun, it can kill the other person does what you said. That's warriorhood. That's being a warrior in the European mind. But in our tradition, a warrior is somebody who's been given the privilege of defending these people. That's a privilege. That's a great honor for these people to trust you with their lives, to see you as somebody who's strong enough, smart enough, swift enough, whatever, to be able to handle whatever threat comes to them. That's a major privilege. That's a major honor. For somebody to call you a warrior, for somebody in our community to call you a teacher, that's an enormous, that's always been, in our communities coming up, there was always somebody in the community. There was always somebody in that prison who was called professor. There was always somebody in there who everybody looked up to for their knowledge. John Clark, they call him Little Professor. Because these things are honors that are bestowed on you as by your people, and it's important for us to recognize in terms of folks walking around talking about, I'm an elder or I'm a warrior. If you are, you shouldn't have to say it. It should be evident, and people should be calling you that name on their own. If you get called a teacher by somebody in the community who's to be respected in that community, that means that person respects what you're delivering. So the idea of the abuse of power because you have a gun or you know martial arts well enough to really hurt somebody, you're supposed to use that to protect the people. This is an honor. To be honored in this way by your own. So Brock Peters, I think he's transitioned. Was a famous black actor, and he had very African features. And he was given this award, and I can't remember who gave it to him. It was like an Essence Award or Ebony Award, something like that, but with political meaning. And he's backstage, tears coming down his face. Tears of happiness, tears of joy, tears of honor. And the reporter asked him, why you received this award, you received that award, you received all your, why are you so? He said, because this is the first time I've received an award from my people, yes, from my own honor and me. Yes. He said, it takes it to a whole nother level. So when people are calling us warriors who know who we are, you should be able to smile for a year off of that. So do not take a single needle or piece of thread from the master. You don't take anything. You didn't take credit. They offer you the soda. You don't take it. There's got to be some kind of discussion. Speak politely. And of course, that brings up another point. In our community, everybody doesn't understand the Africans, so everybody's not going to act towards you in the best of way. And it doesn't feel good when you open up the door for a sister and she walks through and doesn't say anything. That hurts. Yeah, that doesn't feel good at all. I've experienced that multiple times. And you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to stop before you got to the pedestrian crossing to make sure that your car knows it wasn't all the way out there. And the person just walks on by like, oh, you're supposed to do that. So we have to understand that context, the context of the reality that we're a part of, where arrogance rules. Even people have no reason to be arrogant because they're not worth any kind of arrogance. Who'll be arrogant with you. So you still have to speak politely. And it's sort of like when you hand over money or something to someone who is homeless, who you believe is homeless. And that person takes it, you see him go into the liquor store and spend the money you just gave him. It's the intent that's important. You did what was right. It's the intent that's important. Okay. Pay fairly for what you buy. Return everything you borrow. And usually when I come across this, I want to laugh. Marcus Garvey has a quote which I have taped to my bookcase, one of my bookcases. And it says, do not borrow anything, do not lend the book that you want. You'll never get it back. First time I read it, I said, Garvey said that? He's telling everybody to read all the time, and he's telling them, never let anybody borrow books. So a lot of elders who I've seen, they make sure that they buy multiple copies, 2 copies, whatever the book is, because they know. They know. And often the person needs that book. That's a mark of a warrior as well. You know who you're dealing with enough to be able to determine what they need to read, what can help them, what book to give them, what words to say to them. Okay. Pay for anything you damage. Pay more. These are indicators of change over time. When you understand history, you see where we're going. When I was coming up, this didn't apply. You returned it in better shape than what you got it in. You borrow mom, dad's car and then half a tank of gas, you bring it back home with the tank full. To show respect and appreciation, because they did not have to do that. They didn't have to give you jack. Do not take liberties with women. I have to talk about this on the regular because of Atlanta, and I know it's all over, but that's where I live. We have so many brothers who are not African, who pretend they are, or even some even think they are, who assume that when a sister who gives them the privilege, the honor, the respect of asking them to assist them with the raising of their sons, they assume that that's the key to the bedroom. That's the assumption. And that's not supposed to be the assumption. It's an honor for her to ask you, because obviously you're the kind of man that she wants her son to grow up to be like. That's an honor. That's a privilege. To be asked this by sisters. Keep your eyes and ears open. I'm doing a common sense security lecture. Please sign up for that whenever it's done. It's going to be coming soon. Know the enemy within. Always guide and protect the children. Always be the servant of the people. This is Wade Noble's definition of power. And we need to be, see the definition of character. He has a definition of power in here as well, but the definition of character. And I read this on the regular because it covers all excuses for you not being a good character. He says, it is important that we focus on an African-centered educational process that creates character. One that creates the character that allows us from the beginning of time to face the world in reality, a process to make sure that our images and our interests will be present long after we are gone. That's why, and Wade Nobles is always talking about pulling from who we have always been to now. Like he'll say, how did they make the bread good through the generations? Well, whenever there's a good loaf of bread or some good flour, they take a piece of that mix and they put it in with the next batch of bread that they were making. And if that batch was good, they take a piece out of that and put it with the next batch to make sure, because anyway. That's why we need to begin to look at that. Character is not just some word that needs to be overused and exploited. We as Black people know that whenever a word is heard, someone will pick it up as theirs and use it as a new weapon. Character is something very precise, yet we struggle with the preliminary definition of the word. We argue that character is the preliminary mark of a people, which signifies their distinct qualities. So they tell you what they're about, what their hearts are about, who they're about, what they think. All that is still very general because we don't know what distinction means and we don't know what quality means. One's character, here's the heart of the definition here. One's character is the complexity of mental and spiritual traits which mark a people and is a detectable expression as evidence of their ability to transmit their own hereditary information. And it sounds confusing, but it's not. Your character as a people is identifiable based on your willingness and ability to pass on who you are to your children without compromise. If we don't pass on to our children who they are as a direct reflection of our ancestors, then we have no character. We're punks. And you can't get around that. You can't hide from that. And he says it this way: if we're not passing to the next generation of African children the essence of what it is to be African, we have no character. The fundamental evidence of our having character is that we pass in very precise ways what it means to be normal, i.e. what it means to be African. Because there is no other normality for us. Rules of the neophytes into the mystery system in Kemet. First one, self-control. I see these in order. They might not have written them in order, I don't know. But there's an order to this. If you can't control your thoughts, you can't control your actions. Number two. If you can't control your thoughts and your actions, you can't have devotion or purpose. Devotion, that's dedication. That means you put your heart and soul into it. That's your first and foremost priority. Nothing makes you deviate from that decision as to what to do. But if you don't have self-control, then pretty soon you're going to find a way, your mind's going to find a way to escape that responsibility, that level of discipline. You're going to find a way to rationalize being weaker. You're going to make it human. Have faith in your ability to believe what those who are teaching you, who you respect, are saying. So we've allowed, through spoilage, now going on our third generation of people who believe that they're smarter than the teacher, that the teacher is not worth listening to, and they don't know anything. They have accumulated some trivia. That's not to downplay them. What needs to downplay is that they have been allowed to think in this way. That's been facilitated by us. We're spoiling our children into hell. My mother would say, you don't spoil a boy into a world that's going to try to kill him. Mm-hmm. And this is exactly what we're doing. Like, everything is fine now. Everything is good. Whoever socializes them, it's all good. They'll be okay. No, I'm waiting for 10 years. It's not good. And it's going to get worse. You talk about 10 years, it's kind of like an aside. You talk about 10 years, all of the drugs that these children are getting in school, these are addictive. What's going to happen when they turn 18, get out of school, and the state isn't giving them these drugs anymore? All these children who they have on drugs in schools. And why do we now have all these children on drugs in school? Why wasn't this going on in the 60s and in the 70s? Why wasn't this a problem? I was talking to Dr. Baruch earlier. I knew in my entire time of elementary, junior high school back then, and high school while I was present, I only knew one child who had asthma. Now it's like a third of the class, half of the class. We need to assess changes, which means we need to understand some history so we can see what's coming. So we can prepare for it. Go online and search girls gun competition. I do these things for the show so they can see. Search girls gun competition. You remember when I was at Morehouse bringing the magazine showing? If they were putting in the gun magazine, Gun and Ammo, American Rifleman, Soldier of Fortune magazine. And you'll scroll and you'll scroll and you'll scroll and you'll scroll and you won't see anything but white girls practicing for us. And they're putting it right in our face. Search father teaching son how to shoot. You'll scroll and you'll scroll and you'll scroll and you'll scroll. And you'll see white men teaching white boys how to shoot. And the first picture you see of a black one is of a black man teaching his son how to shoot a basketball. It's in our face. They're doing it. Why do you have millions and millions of videos of survival stuff now? They're bored? Oh, they're serious. When I was a child, it was commonly understood that if you really wanted to know what major to have your child go into in college, then you watch where the white children are going, watch where the white parents are sending their children. And we would do that, but when it comes to survival, when it comes to protecting our community, somehow we can't seem to follow what they're doing. We just completely forget that we're supposed to be following them. We're following everywhere else except for defense of ourselves, except for defense of our community, except for planning as to what may come. We act like we don't understand that history has cycles. No empire lasts forever. No empire has ever lasted forever. But we think that they are. We think that America is. It's amazing when we would shut down our thinking process. But all these things they follow in order, and all of them are about self-discipline. So you were training, the Kemetic mystery system was training youth to create Africa and to continue to create Africa through time. I remember sister asking Iniana, what's the purpose of Aqaba? And I said, what are you guys trying to do? And I said, what we're trying to do is to make them understand what it means to be African, so much that if you put a black boy and a black girl on an island who came from our school, they would rebuild African civilization from scratch. They wouldn't mistake anything else. And we forget that logic when we study the Maroons, when we study the Quilombos in Brazil. We forget that when they left those plantations, they didn't go and recreate European society. They created African society. That to me is the only thing. It's amazing what is kept out of the books. That's the only thing they don't talk about when it comes to them. They don't say anything about they will recreate African society. They weren't trying to imitate Europeans. Always ask yourself, why is that not part and parcel of that discussion? This I find most. That's why I love Ahikwa Arma's writings, and I'm not a fiction person. But his 2,000 Seasons, that should be required reading for every African child. If they read nothing else by him, 2,000 Seasons, and they will read it slowly. You can just read the introduction to 2,000 Seasons and put the rest of the book away. And that'd be enough to carry you, even though you need to read the whole book. But in his Healers, he talked about some African youth who were trying to become healers of their people. And when they became part of this, like the Kemetic mystery system, when they became part of this rites program, if you will, there were a set of rules that they had to follow, just like the students and the neophytes in the Kemetic system. There were rules that they had to follow. And these rules were supposed to apply for your life, because this is the kind of model you're supposed to present to your society. And the rules were, do not do, the healer does not drink or smoke intoxicants, does not use violence against human beings or fight, does not call upon his God to do his work. We're calling the Creator to come in and save us. But at the same time, we're saying, oh, well, you know, we're bodies, vessels of spirit. Okay? The Creator's job is to come in and assist you if we want to separate the Creator like that. You're supposed to do the work, and the Creator's supposed to come and assist you get the work done. But you're supposed to initiate and do the work. Somebody's destroying your children, well, you start destroying them, and the Creator will come and assist you in that process. Beginning of the Haitian Revolution. That was all about that, calling Come and help us do this work. Not come and do this work for us. Come and help us do this work. And another part of the discussion, when we talk about praying, we need to begin to think about prayer as a personal conversation. If you're not separable from divinity, if divinity is in you, if you are a vessel and you're as much divinity as divinity, then why are you trying to outsource your work? Healers do not gossip or quarrel. Waste the night, however, he respects those older than himself. And this was, here we go. I got to go back to the other one. This one, and I got to go back to it because it's important. This is a conversation in there because I'm wondering where he's going in this book with this. I mean, you trying to train pacifiers, I'm saying warriors versus peacemakers versus warriors. And one of the students' name was Densu. And this is a conversation he was having with one of his teachers, one of the healers that was teaching him. The principle, and they're talking about I will not fight or commit violence. The principle sounds good, Densu said. Would you obey it all the time, under every circumstance, the healer asked? When the circumstances are reasonable, said Densu. Could you make yourself clear, the healer asked. If the healer is attacked, surely he defends himself. The attacker is a human being, the healer said. Is a human being human under every circumstance? When is a human being not human? Suppose a man turns killer. Is he not more like a beast then? Or if he invades your house, flashing a weapon, Densu asked. As one learning to be a healer, Danfo asked, what would you do in such a case? I would stop it. Violently? Violently. Without killing him? If that's possible. If it's impossible, I would kill him, said Densu. That goes against the rule, the healer said. Not against his meaning, I don't think. What do you think is its meaning, the healer asked? Respect for life. How can you kill out of respect for life? Out of respect for life. If what I kill destroys life, Densu answers. We somehow forgot that, just like we forgot the accept in a lot of the principles of Ma'at when it comes to Ten Commandments. We somehow missed that accept part in there because it allows us to be punks. Comfortable punks. Outsourcing. And I said somewhere in Iwa, people without good character cannot build institutions with good character. Even though bad character can provide a foil by which to measure good character, only good character can provide an adequate model of good character for the warriors to follow. Like builds like. You can pretend that it's good, but it's not gonna hold for long. Just like I've been seeing this post online, this meme online a lot lately, where your children, they're gonna grow up and they're gonna know you. They're gonna know what you're about. You can hit all their childhood all you want to, but they're gonna figure it out. Again, children aren't stupid. I think they're pretty smart. One of our Kemetic ancestors, this is my favorite, it's out of the Hosea, but this is one of my favorite quotes out of there. It says, this is instructions to warriors. Just like orders, marching papers. Punish those who deserve punishment. It's like we have, because it's a separate rule that applies to Europeans that applies to us. They can have movies all about vengeance. Oh, you killed my wife, you killed my children, I'm going to wipe out your whole country. For us, we're supposed to say, well, we forgive them, we need to forgive them. And I know everybody's not saying that, but that's the only thing that's making it to the news. Our ancestors instructed us. And what we have to remember about these things also is this is not this man's words. We don't write like that. Just like a proverb doesn't have a name attached to it. It's a people's thinking. It says, punish those who deserve punishment, and none will equal your righteousness. The balancing of the land lies in Ma'at, truth, justice, and righteousness. Do not speak falsely, for you are great.
Do not act lightly, for you have weight. Be not untrue, for you are the balance, and do not swerve, for you are the standard. You are on the level of the balance. If it tilts, then you will lean too. Do not drift, rather steer. Do not rob, rather act against robbing. If you turn your face from violence, who will punish wrongdoing? If you turn your face from violence, who will punish wrongdoing? We've been turning our face so much, it's like, I'm surprised that our neck doesn't have multiple fractures upon fractures upon fractures. Because we will see it. We're different now. We'll pull out the cameras. We won't turn our face. We'll pull out the cameras now. But we turn our face when something is being wrong, and we sit and cry and whine about it. We're still slaves. We're still afraid to die. Even over our children, our spouses, our parents, we want to talk about it. Have this conversation about, this murder, this theft, this what have you. We want to talk about it. There was a time we didn't talk. Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon, that's the reason I really like that book. In her book, she talks about the 7, I don't remember the name of it, but it was like 7 brothers. Yes. Each of them had a day. And they didn't know who each other was, if I remember correctly. So nobody could blame, nobody could accuse, nobody could tell on anybody. But if a black man got shot and killed by the cops on a Tuesday, whoever was Tuesday wouldn't handle that. Something happened to somebody in the community on a Monday, whoever was Monday, they wouldn't handle that. It's like we have a week of 0 days now. We don't have anybody to handle anything. So if we don't have anybody to handle anything, why would anybody fear us and think twice about doing whatever they felt like doing to us? There's no threat. I think about when we were at Morehouse, and I was come on the days that Eni had class, and I'd park in the parking lot where I could see the building, the door that she was coming out of. But between me and that door was the post where the security guards were. And I'd see them stop every black person who drove onto their campus and question them. Now, I, of course, couldn't hear the questions, but you can tell the intensity. Every black person who drove onto their campus. Every white person, you can see, well, where are you trying to go? We go that way. Okay. And there wasn't a white person standing there saying, you better treat like. No, they understood that if they went against that white person, they had a whole white people to deal with. But if they troubled that black person,
right,
and
right,
nothing. Absolutely nothing. And Bobby, you have to tell me when I've.
It's your house, brother.
It's mine? Okay. And this one is one of my favorites about how we, for so long, I heard, and that's why I started using the words righteous rage versus anger. So if you need to get rid of your anger, you need to let that go. No, you need to refine that. You need to apply it in an effective way. Just rampant, just go shooting and killing anybody. No, you refine it, you use it in a way that's going to be effective for the community. So I said, warriors don't pray that they lose their anger, knowing that it is a righteous, responsible rage. They pray that it be correctly directed against their people's enemies. Warriors are healers called upon to do battle, to open the way and clear the space within which their people's wounds can begin healing. So the brother's job is to create safe, sacred spaces so that the mamas can be the first teachers. They don't have to worry about who's outside of the house, who's around the corner, who's in the classroom. The brother's supposed to make that space sacred and safe, period. Period. I don't, because we're caught up in this sexist reality. We don't understand the logic of our ancestors where they would say, the woman identifies what needs to be done and the man does it. And the heart of that was that the woman is more connected to the people in the community. She knows what's going on in the children more. Because that's, as a first teacher, that's one of the things that she does. So she can say, we need a building built over there. Animals are coming in that way. We need to build something so that they can't come in there. We need a new school. I don't have a problem with that. I don't see that as hierarchical. I see that as lateral. That's not a vertical ranking.
Teach about
The person who knows the job best is supposed to be the one who's responsible for explaining it, for doing it, what have you. And EDI doesn't like me saying domains, but I'll say there should be men's domains and women's domains in the house. And whatever she's best at, then she should be responsible for it. Now, he may have some input in that, but she has the final say. And those things that he's good at, then he should be responsible for it. Now, she can have some input into that, but he makes the final decision. In the house I grew up in, my father was security. And there were some things my mother didn't particularly cared about. She might have voiced her opinion on that. But he did it the way he knew how to do it best because he was good at that. He knew how to hurt people. And the same thing with my mother with her domains. We have to understand it. If somebody is breaking into your house, if you don't have one person who's responsible for handling a situation, then everybody's going to end up getting killed because you're going to have a discussion about what you need to do. Unless or until spirituality is connected to warriorhood. And that's why I wrote not identity, what did I write? The blue book. I guess so many, it's like colors now. The last one. The Pancho, excuse me? No, another stuff. Don't you know these old books? That's embarrassing. Okay. Yeah, the thick one. Higher ground. Higher ground. And that's why I wrote that, because so many brothers have distanced themselves from any form of spirituality because of their relations with the church as children. That's a huge chunk of our power. That's got to be brought back. In whatever way, various ways, what have you. That needs to be brought back. As I said, unless or until spirituality is connected to warriorhood for African men and women, it can find no permanent or meaningful home for them except in pacifying them. The only thing that spirituality is going to do for us is make us feel comfortable being destroyed. We're going to get ours and and they're going to get theirs too. We should never confuse a true warrior's healing with pacifism. All of these rights programs out here, all of these 3-4 day retreats for men where we get in touch with our feelings. I haven't heard of one that's talking about creating warriors or just connecting. If the program that you're going to a part of doesn't have warriorhood in there somewhere, and I'm talking about real warriorhood, then you need to stay away. I don't want to be anywhere around that type of quote unquote man or grown male. When it comes to the security of my community, I want you to understand you might have to kill somebody. You might have to go to prison for killing somebody. Because you have a responsibility to protect the women and the children in the community. I don't care how backward or sexist or whatever that sounds. I absolutely do not care. If somebody touched me, my father would have handled it. They said the only thing he would have wanted to know was where this guy lived, what his name was. That's it. And he'd come back, and as I said many times, he'd come back, he'd sit on the porch steps, tell my mother, call the cops, and I'll wait for him. Because men aren't concerned about consequences when it's about being righteous. There's no concern for that. Men aren't, let me forget what I was saying. Men aren't concerned about consequences when the work is righteous. It is. It is. That's that. And it's not, for me, it's not the words, it's what I saw. Okay. And it's sort of like when something happened in the community I grew up with, you might have heard little whispers here and there. And the women would come together and they would talk, what have you. and you wouldn't see the men. And when you saw the men, it was like they were breathing a sigh because these guys came back whole. They came back alive. But they went and handled whatever needed to be handled. And we're afraid to do that. Everybody else does that. There's no country ever on the face of this planet that has not killed a traitor. That's the law everywhere. You commit treason against your people, capital punishment. Everywhere on this planet. Everywhere. Except in the African community. Everywhere except for us. So why would anybody fear us? Why wouldn't anybody and everybody have all the information they need about us? This is fact. This is not me saying go out and start shooting people. No, this is fact. This is fact. This is long, so I'm going to, well, no. We should never confuse a true warrior's healing with pacifism. This is a contradiction particularly evident within individuals who are constantly declaring that we are at war and even making credible points about European aggressions and inhumanity, but who possess no weapons to protect their families in a world of guns. When did this come to my attention? In a Men's Society class at Morehouse, where this guy said, well, I'm going to get me some land, and we're going to grow some crops, and we're going to do our meditation, children, we're going to water, we're going to have surplus, we're going to have grain bins. And I said, you know who you deal with? You forget about Europeans. They see surplus, they come and take. 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody breaks into your house, you bring out the teacups and some cinnamon tea or what? And how do you feel after that person has beat down your son, raped your daughter, killed your wife, and you're talking about being a pacifist? It's at these points I really don't care what people think. Because if you come into my house at 3 o'clock in the morning, you put this on Facebook, I don't care. Come into my house at 3 o'clock in the morning and see if you leave.
I say the same thing, Robert. I say the same thing.
And I have a relative, he'll remain unnamed. I have a relative that said, and if you get out the front door and I shoot you, I'm going to bring you back in because then I don't get charged for killing you outside of the house. This is our family. What would the ancestors say? I allowed this person to do this in my home?
No.
Granddad? Big Mom? I tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. I suspect very strongly that they would not understand. In a world of guns, the evidence of your mentality is in your action or lack thereof. We are at war is no slogan. It is a fact which those making this declaration must act upon, providing credible warrior models for those seeking liberation by any and every means necessary in a holistic approach to the war effort. Peace must be an intelligent action predicated on operative definitions of what must be done to eliminate the possibility of others' incursions. We have to be ready. Preparedness is key, period. We used to know that. When you look at when the Klan used to come in through our towns at night, there would be a trench dug behind the houses from one house to the next that you could crawl through to get to another house and they couldn't see you from the street. That's preparedness. Read Robert Williams' Negroes with Guns. That's an important thinking tool. And think about how you do this. Think about all the possible exigencies, all the possible things that can happen, and solve them in your head so that when they happen, you're ready, versus trying to figure it out at that point in time. That's what warriors do. We figure out what to do if there's going to be a fire, tornado, flood, hurricane, earthquake, but we have not given second thought to what we do if somebody invades our house, or if the enemy comes to the door and we have children. How can you have an independent school say that we are at war and not have drills for security? How can we have any event in our community that's not safe, where every man present, as well as additional men, aren't handling the periphery, making sure that nobody who's not supposed to be there is there, making sure this doesn't happen. And I've seen this at work, in actual action. I do K-Buka lecture every year. We did it on, I believe, the Georgia State campus. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking about what they did to us in the dungeons. And the children know me. White boy walks in, comes in, takes a seat on the front row. I look at the children. The children looking at me like. So I stopped talking for a minute because I actually did not know what to do. This was not our property. I couldn't, most of the times we've done this has been on our property, so I could tell them you need to leave. So I kind of put my head down, turned around, trying to think about what to do, and I looked up, and 3 of our martial artists were escorting them out. I don't know what they said to them. I don't think they did anything to them, but I don't know what they said to them, but that resolved the problem. And it happened at another one. It's like they have no sense of boundaries. That's what India says. They have no sense of boundaries. They think everything, every place, every person, every mind is there for them to invade. That's why I say an invasive species. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes.
Early in the morning, the Nation of Islam was there, fortunate. We were there at 4:30 in the morning, we were right by the stage. White people started jogging, and they're gonna jog up on the stage where they see everything set up. The brothers came, some brothers came over and stopped that action, but good thing the Crew of Islam, they said, stop. We got it, brothers, this, whatever else.
Let us take
So they
responsibility.
tried to run across it. What? Ridiculous. That was at the Million Man March early in the morning.
That was ugly.
But they got handled. They went.
Mm-hmm. Walking your dog across Howard University's campus pooping.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And we wanted to talk about it.
Wow.
We wanted to talk about it. There'll be some damage, well, I was going to say dogs, but there'll be some damaged dog owners.
Well,
Yes.
Well, the brother, excuse me, Ben,
No.
the brother, when that little 6th of January situation happened, and those proud, whatever they call themselves, they went down the wrong street in D.C. Several of their bodies got carried out, allegedly.
Allegedly. I can deal with allegedly. Yeah. Because we know. We know. We know. And some of us do act. Some of these youngsters and oldsters are waking up
Oh yeah.
and understanding it's not going to change.
Oh yeah.
I was brought up in, I keep talking about how, well, that's what I know. I was brought up in a house where I was told you have to speak to people in the language they understand. Yes. Yeah. Otherwise, they're not going to understand. It's not fair to them. If what you're saying to them, they don't understand, and they keep doing what they're doing. They're doing what they naturally do.
Right.
Okay. You talked about we are a people of evidence. Of the top 10 slides, this is probably the most important. When I teach the children in particular, and of course EDI does too, but there's certain things I focus on. And one of the things I focus on is this concept called reconceptualization. And they love doing it, right? Okay, I'm looking at right at 2 of mine already. They understand that, they're geniuses, but they need to use that genius to strengthen us. And language being so important, they need to take words, whether they're foreign words, African words, what have you. They need to take these words and give them definitions that assist warriors doing their work. Okay, words that have, a safo has a meaning for us. It means that you're training to be a warrior, or you already are a warrior. That's however other people define it, that's them. But for us, for our warriors, evil is supposed to have a particular meaning for us. A Bibi Fahodi, African liberation, is supposed to have a particular meaning. Medowo, I love you, that's supposed to have a particular meaning, and that particular meaning has a particular character that goes with it. And people say I love you all the time, but it doesn't mean the same thing as when you're saying it to somebody who is African and you're African. The warriors are servants. And we're not defining servants as Europeans do. To be a servant is a privilege.
Come on.
The African people, I mean, if you can, every year up until last year, there was a Black Science Fair in Atlanta, and independent schools all participated, and we were one of the schools. And they'd come up and they'd make their presentations, and they'd have, you know, their trifolds and all the rest of that. The next to last time when it occurred, and it occurs in 2 malls. On Fridays in one mall, on Saturdays in the other mall, where most black folks in Atlanta go. When we were making our presentation, a fight broke out in front of a hair shop that's in the mall, that's behind the stage. I didn't even think, and I'm not like, right, I think that this should be second nature to us. I immediately turned around, walked toward, and I had to jump down off the stage. NEI immediately gathered the children and took them off the stage to protect them. And I remember later seeing pictures where the rest of the mamas, because it was mostly mamas, they pushed the children down because there were about 5 or 6 people involved. I immediately walked over there with some brothers and sisters and, you know, tried to break it up and keep people from hurting each other. And it was pretty serious. I'm glad they weren't in their guns. My brain just stopped functioning at the time. So they broke it up. We didn't have to call security and everything got settled, blah, blah, blah. About a year later, one of the elder mamas who was a elder for a school, one of the independent schools, she said to me, "We were so proud when you went over to help break up that fight." I'm like, you know, that's the kind of honor that lasts you for the rest of your life. You don't remember if anybody saw, and if they saw, you don't know if they remember exactly what they saw. But for an elder mama to tell me that she was proud of me, but the name in Walimu, which means teacher in Kiswahili, I got that name from a sister who was a professor above me in the sociology department at Morehouse. I thought she hated my guts because they hated her. So Rousseau McKenzie, they hated her. They put her in an office, put me in her office with her, and I had just come to the school. Took a program that she had away from her. Because she was brilliant. You'd never see more than 8, 9 students in her class, but they were scared of her. And she walked by me one day and she said, "Greetings, Waldo." You know, and I stopped in my tracks because that's like, from her, that would be like the greatest honor. So to receive that honor from people because you are acting in the capacity of a servant. Now they slave.
Right.
Yeah. But as a servant, they know that you're willing to die for them. They know that you won't lie to them. So warriors are servants of the people. It's an honor to be. Of course, being Ubuntu, as I am because we are. That's what we are. And a servant of our people. Sovereignty is a warrior's ultimate power concept. I can't think of any other situation for us where we could really be happy as a people. Other than us being in charge of our own world, our own reality. Most of us cannot imagine that. And as now Amos Wilson would say, most of us can't imagine a world without Europeans in charge. We think everything would fall apart and, everything would mess up. But along the same lines, we can't imagine a world where we're happy. Where we're absolutely happy because we are in charge. Just like I used to say to the college students when we were talking about colorism, I said, most of us can't imagine a black angel. I mean, I said, like my grandfather, blue-black. Toes to head, wings, everything. Most of us can't, because our whole conception of an angel is white. So that means none of our ancestors, assuming you believe in heaven, none of our ancestors went there. We didn't make it. So that taking all of that hell on earth, just so that we could get to heaven, that didn't pay off, obviously. Okay. So what is power? And we often confuse, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but this I think is important. And when all of the protests begin to occur, and I don't have a problem with protests, but it needs to be put into some kind of action. Don't buy from them.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
Not just for, that 7 days or that, no, ever. They have been murdering you forever. Don't buy from them ever again, period. Unless you have absolutely no choice. So I said, it makes no difference what you know or believe if you don't have the power to create your own will. I can know Europeans are the worst, evil in the universe. But if I don't have the power to stop them from, or the ability to stop them from committing their evil against me, I don't have any power. Power is the ability to make it happen. Power is the ability to start an educational institution regardless of what the neighbors say, or the schools say, or the state or the city try to do about it. May not be the ideal school that you want, may not have all the students that you want, may not have the money that you want, may not have the grants that you want, but to do that regardless of odds, that's an exercise of power. And there's so many things that stop us from doing the things that we need to do. This is an exercise of power. This place is an exercise of power. And he couldn't do this unless we were participants in his exercise of power. So if we decided we weren't going to buy anything from him anymore, we weren't going to support him, the vendors that were in here, we weren't going to eat any of that food, he couldn't do this. He couldn't exercise his power. So for us, power is a collective communal action. But if you're not doing it, you run off at the mouth till you blue in the face. It doesn't mean anything. And we've gotten accustomed to thinking just saying it is an act of power, and it's not. It's not. Marcus Garvey said power is the only argument that satisfies man, because that puts him in charge of whatever it is. It took me years to figure out what he was saying. And someone else may have a different interpretation. But he also said, and I love this, so few of us can understand, and this is how long ago, and it's more relevant today than before. So few of us can understand what it takes to make a man. The man who will never say die, the man who will never give up, the man who will never depend upon others to do for him what he ought to do for himself, the man who will not blame God, who will not blame nature, who will not blame fate for his condition, but the man who will go out and make conditions to suit himself. That's power. That's power. Marcus Mosiah Garvey was a powerful man, along with his wives. He liked Amy's, I think. This is a powerful man. Largest to ever exist. And there's absolutely no reason why we can't do that over again larger. Now, Amison Wilson said, and not Amison Wilson, he will say things about people and you feel sorry for him. Power comes with being, with interactive existence, with being alive. It is the essence of life and the motive force of growth and development and of the adaptability of living things to environmental changes and demand. That's organizational theory. Power refers to the ability to do, the ability to be, the ability to prevail. Beingness and aliveness originate with power. To be powerless is to be willless, impotent, and lifeless, without effect or influence, to be nothing, of no account. Power refers to the ability to be, the ability to prevail. There's nothing in there about conversation. Conversation is supposed to augment, supposed to assist, supposed to work with the action. Because we all have to communicate, because you have to figure out how to do it. Instructions, guidance, what have you. But that's supposed to supplement it. That's not supposed to be all there is to it. Wade and Noble said, and this is probably his most famous quote, power is the ability to define reality and to have others respond to your definitions as if it were their own. And most times not even knowing. So Europeans are exercising a lot of power over us in every institution, in every place. There's nowhere you can turn the idiot box where they're not influencing. And we're allowing that to socialize our children. They can watch more porn on the phones than they can online, on the net. And it's gotten a lot worse than it was when I wrote The Sex Imperative. A lot worse. I say power is the will and ability to do what is necessary to exist as a living, thriving, normal, as ancestrally defined human being. And in the context of a group or people, as a living, thriving, normal, as ancestrally defined group or people. The ability to do. And I was watching some events that were going on in Atlanta, and in my family, and in my wife's family. And I looked at power there. It is essentially the number of choices you have. There's a connection, there's a correlation. The more choices you have, the more powerful you are. The fewer choices you have, the less powerful you are. Simple equations. And related to that, your power is evident in the choices you see as being available to you. I got a lot of things to say here. This one is the most important because this is the one that we're most confused about. People who are destroyed, people who are vanquished, who believe that they fought a war and they lost and they should have lost the war, those are vanquished people. They believe they should have lost the war and that they did lose. The war's not over, but they believe that it's over. We confuse influence with power because we have no power. Now, if you read Blueprint for Black Power by Amos Wilson, his definition of influence and mind don't necessarily agree completely, but there are similarities. In general, power is the direct, unmitigated exercise of self-determining conscious thought, regardless of others' interests or interference. It's doing what you think, what you know to be correct, regardless of what other people think or what their interests are. It is the uncompromised actualization of one's will into existence with the force that prevents any successful challenge to its determined presence. Nothing can stop it short of your death. Nothing can stop me short of death. Or gun to my wife's head, my daughter's head. Those things might stop me. But there's nothing that anyone can say to me. I was told not to publish the Homer book. That didn't stop it. That's power. There is no questioning conscious, historically grounded, spirit-driven power. You see it everywhere in us. Or you wouldn't know that Africa ever existed because there wouldn't be anything there. Influence, on the other hand, is not power. And when I look at Ebony Magazine's 100 most influential Black people, that's immediately what comes to mind for me. Gotta think about what the word influence means. It doesn't mean to do it per se. It means to modify it or change it or make it go the way that you want it to go better. Influence, on the other hand, is not power. It is the attempt to alter another, more powerful individual or group's opinion or action to your advantage. You're trying to use their power to help you, but it's not your power. You gotta beg somebody else to do it for you, or try to connive your way, or convince them, or deceive them, or bend over for them to use their power for you. It is of a lesser breed. Sociologically speaking, one cannot exercise influence as a means of forcing one's will. Of the two, only power can be effectively exercised in this way. The exercise or threat of exercising power falls within the domain of power, not influence. Power doesn't necessarily have to be exercised immediately. People just have to be aware of what you're going to do if they do that. Wrong. So the boys who came by our house asking, could they take our daughter out? They understood. I didn't hit him. I didn't touch him. I wasn't sitting there like my brother's father-in-law shining my shotgun when they came to the door. Yeah. I didn't do any of that. But they knew me, and they knew that I didn't play. And this is my daughter. What you do to her, I'm going to do 10 times worse to you. That's how I grew up. That's what we need to return to, in my humble opinion. Therefore, outside of the intervention of the influencer's charisma, their ability to talk their way into whatever, which is unlikely to seriously impact those well trained in manipulation, influence is the act of belief in chance. Because whoever you're trying to influence to use their power in your favor, they can say no. In fact, they can turn on you for asking. That's why slaves didn't ask questions. Because they couldn't predict the answer. And they knew usually the answer didn't favor them. It is an expectation. Influence is an expectation of a probability based on the goodwill, gullibility, and or objective humanity of the power holders. In the case of Africans relative to Europeans, it is an act of wishful hoping against the record of history. It is an attempt at a pretense that gives the illusion of integrity and substance to a voluntarily servile manhood. It gives you the illusion because I'm closest to Europeans. Some black professors were so excited about me getting accepted to and going to the University of Chicago because that would put me closer to Europeans. That was what the excitement was about. It wasn't about what I would learn. Okay? The excitement about them having another, one of them, but closer to Europeans. That backfired too, but still. There's some quick points. Power and warriorhood are indistinguishable. Okay. And on that point, some people still think that I'm stupid because of that. Because when I realized what was going on, I stopped. I left. I remember doing a lecture at Morehouse in the big science room. I guess there were about maybe 200 students in it that day. And I'm fussing at them because they're talking about working in corporate America and they're going to bring something back to help the community, you know. And I'm fussing, I'm hollering, I'm fussing left and right. And in the middle of it, it clicked. He's doing exactly the same thing. And that was the day before I sent in my letter saying this no more. Power is only exercised on a people's behalf, especially in the situation we're in now. Power is a function of discipline. And I wasn't the only one. For those who, like Negro liberal historians, the same thing applied to John Hope Franklin. He said, they have nothing to teach me. And he left. We have a lot like that, but their names don't get out there like his does. Because we honor that so much. That would be such a feather in our cap. You know, you could go anywhere. You could have any girl that you wanted. You could teach anywhere you wanted. They would have you on the news. You could have your own TV show. Mm-hmm. But I understand I'm African. All that works against us. And plus, I promised never to lie to my students. And I've kept my promise. Power is a function of discipline. Power is only gained and understood through the struggle to overcome difficulty. No struggle, no power. That's how we learn. And we've been tracked away from struggle. I remember about 15, 20 years ago, everybody said, struggle. Let's not say struggle. That's such a harsh word. Let's stop using that word struggle. No, that's a good thing. I've had children as chess students of mine whose parents didn't understand me when I said they have to learn how to lose. Then they can see how it's done to them and won't let it happen again. No, they can't. No, they should never lose. No. I remember Edia coming home frustrated one day because this student in her class, it was, I think it was English 101. No, English writing course in English. And she, this student had done a horrible job throughout the school year. And his papers were sorry, and blah, blah, blah. They came to the last paper in the class, and this student came in with a straight A paper. Writing was perfect, everything was great. So Enia, being a good professor, she used that red pen, and she bled profusely on that paper. His mother called. What happened? Why, my son needs to graduate, blah, blah, blah. And I know it's a good paper because and this student did not understand because she had done everything that he needed to do. So now he was weak. And he couldn't handle the world. Because every little hill he'd run to, I hope folks can see. We would go to the, about 15-minute ride from our house, there's this nature preserve, and we take the students there every once in a while. It's not very large. But we take the students there and, walk around and talk about this tree and that bush and what have you. And we had this one student, he had to be 14, 15, he was the same age as our daughter. And we're walking, and you know how children, they'll kind of hang around. They don't want to be up there with the teacher. They just kind of hang around back there, and the little ones will hang with you. And so, like I said, don't get too far behind. And something told me something was wrong. And I look back, and there's the little ones, and there's the older ones, and then there's this one boy. And he was like 14, and he was just standing there. He wouldn't move. So I went by and said, Joseph, what's up? And he said, can you help me over this hill? It was like the height of a road bump. And he was scared that he would hurt himself. Wow. His mother and grandmother, I'm not laying this in the lap of women because I've seen men as well. His grandmother was so afraid. His grandmother had money. So his grandmother paid her daughter to teach him at home. But she just kept him in the house. He had never walked on grass. He went from the house, the sidewalk, to the car. From the car to, you go to a shopping mall, you're not going to see grass, dirt, whatever. He'd never been to a playground. If he stubbed his toe, that would probably, put him in a coma. He had never, and he was genuinely afraid of tripping over that and hurting himself. So I didn't laugh at him or anything. I assisted him a little bit and made him do the rest themselves. There's a video I just sent Enia the night before last of this grizzly bear on this snowbank, and I guess the snowbank is maybe 10, 12 feet tall. And the mother, she climbs up on the snowbank, and the two cubs, they're like, well, what are we supposed to do here? So they start trying to climb, and they fail, and they fail, and they fail, and finally, they get up there. And I said, that's what we're doing to our children. We're not letting them try the things that we know that they can do. So we're weakening them under the guise that we are strengthening them by doing their work for them. And we're weakening them. So now we have the third generation of weakened children. Empires don't last forever. And when they start to fall apart, it's not pretty. And our children aren't ready for them. Our children are not ready for it. The white girls in the gun competitions, they're ready. Our children are not ready for them in any way, shape, form, or fashion. If you never have to use a gun, okay, fine. At least you know. If you never have to run a mile, at least you know what it feels like. You may never stub your toe again, but if you stub your toe again, it's not going to knock you out of the game because of the pain. You're going to be familiar with that pain, with that difficulty.
Right.
We're taking away our children's strength by running interference for them. Writing papers for them in school, doing their schoolwork. We see this repeatedly. I can't blame the children for being mad. I absolutely cannot. You weaken me and I see now I can't do this. They're mad. They are absolutely mad. Because they have not been prepared for this world. And they're supposed to go out and succeed.
Sir,
Yes.
they told a story to us many years ago.
Mhm.
They used the story of the caterpillar.
Oh, the caterpillar?
Caterpillar.
Caterpillar, okay.
Caterpillar, they were talking about transformation. Somebody got anxious and opened it up and thinking of fly.
Mhm.
But they gave the story of the caterpillar. So the caterpillar goes in the cocoon. We see the caterpillar at first, like, oh, that's a bug.
Mhm.
It goes in the cocoon.
Mhm.
And you see this movement in the cocoon. And it's constantly doing. What it's doing is pushing its wings, pushing its wings, pushing its wings. So when it finally becomes a butterfly, it can fly on its own.
Mhm.
So we took away that struggle part that you're talking about here.
Mhm.
First of pushing the wings, so they can break out their own cocoon. Whatever their weaknesses are, whatever their limitations are, whatever their lack of strengths are, when they become stronger, they can be those butterflies that fly away. So
Absolutely.
they use that analogy.
That's a perfect analogy. Anything that becomes strong, it's got to go through something, some struggle. If you want to be a great intellectual for us, then that means that you're going to go through some hours of reading and studying when you want to go to sleep, when you want to rest. Okay? So anything that you wanted bad enough and you got it, you have to work at it. And we forget also those things that we tend to prize the most. They're those things that we had to assemble, that we had to put together. We had to. No, we can do that. Absolutely, absolutely.
What did you didn't finish it?
I finished this we have
All right, family, we're not done, but the kitchen closes in 10 minutes. So for those of you who want to grab something to eat before Baba finishes, please do so now, and we'll pick back up in about 10 minutes. Is that good? Please don't leave. Don't leave. Come back. You need all of this.
Bodyguard, she lets somebody get back in here.
This is my chance to get everybody in the audience and stuff. Everybody just
Here's the evidence. Here's the evidence. No.
Josh, you want to see it? Yes, please. Brother Dan. You got your
High school.
High school, right?
Yeah, but the white high school is in the white area.
Right. But you're right. High school. Well, within the 10 minutes, college is doing.
You know what I'm talking about?
Brother Dan, you can check it out. Blue State University. Golden State. They don't By the way, I got quite like an outline of this outline thing. I'm going to short the warrior. Warrior. Yeah. It's a thick book, man. Thank you, brother. Oh, good. It's not like a lifetime I see you again. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
Please. I got paper. The prices on the back, except complimentary, is $18.95. It's the only one that does it. So PayPal is
You got a credit card thing with you?
No.
I got cash. Come on. Yeah, it's like a little square thing. That's not mine. It's big. Are you helping someone? Are you helping someone? So I don't.
I've got
But thank you.
You got a unit?
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
okay. Oh, this is one of our parents.
Well, your parents. What? She looks like she's going to be gonna be down somewhere.
Oh, she might.
I might like it. No more. I gotta get my book. You can throw me out later. I'm gonna throw out back.
She's gonna take payment. And I'm gonna go get the credit card.
You want us to take a picture? Okay, come on. Oh, you know what? Also, Dr. Wesley used to say, she used to say, you want to be revolutionary? Black man and woman love each other.
That's it. It's so simple.
My glasses. My glasses. Oh wait, look, I put it right here in my pocket.
I'm glad we took a break.
Glad we took it. Damn. Take a picture of her and me because the police come. I miss it. I want to be like,
All of the work.
that's right, it's her. Get it? Do another one.
Now let me do one. Yeah, she did. Let me do one with the real camera. Well, you'll see the difference in a second. That's what I'm talking about right there. So it's just look at you up in the when I heard my number, I was like,
You know what? That's my
this is right before the
government phone. I said, in that picture, he ain't gonna get it about 3 weeks. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, right. Oh, that's a nice one. It has
Has everybody been shown the evidence?
Don't trust me.
Let us get a break.
Like this. How's it happen? Right? Different. Oh, yeah.
Camping trips, survival camping trips.
Yeah, on the other side.
So I left one of the companies. I left Delaware to go over here. We had.
I've been a part of the organization. That's Michelle. I need to Google that now.
Yeah. Share your information. Come out. All right. We look forward to it.
Yes. We'll turn down that scholarship. Or
All of them? Oh, man.
look, and this is the last one.
Like something bad.
Yes, we can use this machine right here.
Okay. So you know, I was falling asleep. You tried to bad. still on that shelf. What you put that? That black soap, you know that? Black soap, it's a big thing of black soap that you made that's on that shelf. That used to be my bottle. That big picture. There's a whole quick assembly.
That was Mike that was doing that. You ready to run that? So what's that product store. You don't see it. No windows. Let me know. You got my number, sir? All right, we're about to get started, family.
I'm gonna go find
All the other pictures we'll take afterwards. All right, family, we're about to get started. Please sit down. Reassemble.
Okay, family. Still there? Okay, okay. I'm not in a rush.
You're at home, Mama.
Yeah,
All right.
plane doesn't leave till AM.
There you go.
Right.
And I can pretty much sleep on there because the wife, I just get some European sits beside me, but they get the message real quick. We're not having a conversation. Thank you.
And they always know what movie you played in.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, did you play?
Didn't you put, yeah. Weren't you the one that killing those vampires? I didn't get that check.
The reason I started saying about 2 years ago, from dealing with them, that there's two things, and now where we live, it's like at the heart of gentrification in Atlanta now, the western area. So this is like, a house, it's a block and a half away, selling for over $1.5 million. So they want the old house. You know, I'm a meat fan. I know. They start coming up and down the street, looking to see which ones they were gonna steal. And I said, when they meet you, they're looking for one or two things. You friend or foe? It's that simple for them, and then they move from there. Are you friend or foe? You can see it. So they obviously see my face every time I fold. But there's been some, some damage is done. Planted a red maple tree for the whites. It was 5 when they killed it. My dogwood died same year. We can't plant any food in the raised beds. And somehow mysteriously, we got 13 raised beds. We got 13 raised beds. So we can't plant food, so they're doing it. As long as they don't step in the house, we're good. I think I have a reason to call. I'm too old to worry about, prison. I'm not trying to sound like I'm all that.
Yes.
But, when you know what they are, they know what they are. When they start doing things that they have no business doing, I say, okay, you want to become a martyr?
Mm-hmm.
I got no problem with that. I've enjoyed my life. I've enjoyed my wife, I've enjoyed my daughter, I've enjoyed the community. And if it's time, then it's time. But you're not going to do this.
Yes.
You're not going to do this.
That shrine of Black Madonna's going, right?
Excuse me?
The shrine of Black Madonna's going now, right?
They are still there, but it's like really, it might be open 2 days.
Okay.
You don't see cars in the parking lot.
Okay.
They might as well not be there. Not that the shrine isn't, are good people, but.
Yes, sir. You don't see all the red shirts
Yeah.
and all the people.
No, you don't see any.
Mm.
It's been years since I've seen a red shirt.
Mm.
Years. And the only way that I know that they are still active is that you can see the stuff behind in the windows.
Okay.
But I don't see anybody. I can't remember the last time I saw someone go in or come out of that door.
Mm.
So you don't see them. The gate stays open. The big gate stays open. But yeah. And if they weren't already, they want that property.
Yes.
They got the Ace Hardware there. They're already changing the bank. And what people forget, I don't know how long ago it was. I think it was like 10 years. You might have been. They dug up all of Abernathy from the entire West End Mall all the way past to where the church on the corner.
Yes.
They had the street door. You couldn't drive down the street, and they put in these huge sewer pipes, huge drainage pipes, and then they covered it back up. So they've done a lot of things in the area in preparation for what they're getting ready to do, but they've covered it up so people don't know that it's there. I remember when you couldn't drive down the street. You couldn't drive down the street, so they have prepared that area. I told the guy who lives across from me, Caesar Mitchell. He was a council person for in Atlanta. He became the chair of the city council. He's a Morehouse man. When they first moved in, he came over and introduced himself, and I introduced myself, Larry Crawford, Morehouse Construction. He said, "Oh, you're a legend." In my mind saying, "You don't know what kind of legend." He wouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
But he was one of him and Cleta Winslow and this other sister, they like spearhead. They made it illegal for you to have duplexes, so that got rid of over half of the people in the area. So we're waiting. I'm not going anywhere. They can pay for the land if they want to. We're gonna be on. They're welcome to do that. It's all cool. Okay, so let us go ahead and this garbage. Okay. I just worked it. Okay. I don't think I can show that. Maybe I can. I don't think I can.
I can't remember what the last word is here, so we're going to skip this one. When I began to try to think more in spiritual terms about us and our role, warriors' role, and I don't think there's an age thing on warriors. When we look back at our tradition, you were a warrior, 15, 16 through 26, 30, somewhere around there. You were an actively engaged warrior. You carried your weapon. You did your work. At that point in time, you became more of a politician in the community. And the younger folks behind you, they took over those roles. In this reality, where we are right now, we don't have those options. You're a warrior from the time that you wake up to the time that you transition out of this. Just like with elders, people ask, well, what age is an officially elders? But technically, I'm not an elder. I still have another 2 years before I would become an elder. But people have been treating me like I'm an elder for like the last 15 years because they're so scarce. So many are gone. And so we have to make adjustments. And that's another part of tradition and culture. It changes. As long as the heart doesn't change. That's where a lot of people mess up because they think that changes that are superficial is changing in the heart. We're not changing those first things that we talked about. Those are African, being, certain kind of qualities, certain kind of characteristics. Those don't change just because you start wearing red clothes instead of green ones. And people are confusing that because of the superficiality of Western culture where everything of worth, if you will, is really surface. And our traditions didn't operate at that level. We operated at a deeper level, a much deeper level than that, but we are defining things in the same way. We have to go back. So when we talk about tradition, then we have to make sure that we are clear that we are talking about the heart and soul of being African. That what Marimba Ani called the Asili, that spiritual essence of us that does not change, even if we're lost and we've all become hitmen, prostitutes, whatever. That's still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. And so when we're talking to our children, when we're talking to our community, when we're trying to make sure that we are moving in the right direction, that needs to be understood. Just like that thing with culture or culture versus subculture, ethnicity versus the group. We have to make those distinctions because those distinctions confuse and they divide. Anyway, when I started thinking about more along spiritual lines, because I was very angry with the church for a long time. I mean, I haven't stepped inside of a church. I believe I was 12, except twice for 2 people getting married. And that was it. So I ran, but I ran with intent. I was the vice president of the United Methodist Youth Council. And my job was to plan a Christmas event. So Boys Town is not too far from our church. And I said, well, let's do a thing for the orphans. We could get a Christmas tree, decorations, get some food, get some gifts for everybody. And it's over, we put the tables away, we can then play some basketball and then, take them back home and they would have, had an enjoyable time. So I sat down and I wrote out this plan and it came to about 25 cents per member of the church. And I took it to the adult council who we answered to, and they had all these excuses why it couldn't be done. We got to clean out our fireplace. We got to do this. And they weren't involved. They didn't need to be there. But that really opened up my eyes. About somewhere between, I can't remember exactly, somewhere between 3 weeks and 3 months later, the church put this big umbrella, green umbrella from the church down 2 flights of steps to the main sidewalk so you wouldn't get wet coming into the church, thousands of dollars. Then the minister bought himself a Coupe de Ville, bought his wife a Seville, and bought his daughter an Eldorado. Wow. All at the same time. Wow. That woke my eyes up real quick. So the next Sunday, after they got the cars, the next Sunday, My father was the head usher. My mother was she took care of everything. She poured the grape juice for communion and cut the bread and all the rest of this stuff. The next Sunday, the minister, he's talking about, service to the community. Like I said, I was 12. I got up in the middle of the sermon.